Yes.
ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ गणानां त्वा गणपतिगं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः ॐ श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Okay, so we have finished the first chapter part. So basically this text has 10 chapters, 5 chapters with 2 parts each, so 5 into 2, and we have completed the first one which had 41 sutras, right? So at the towards the end of that, we covered out of the 16 categories, we covered Tarka and Nirnaya, right? So if you can look up at the initial 16 categories, then Praman, Pramay, Sanchan, Prayojan, Drishtant, Siddhant, Avyava, Tarka. So Tarka is the eighth. So we are halfway there, right? Out of the 16. And then Nirnaya we have also done. So now we are on to the next one, which is Vada, which is one of the main attractions, you can say the star attractions of this. Of course, Vad is basically discussion. So this we start with the first chapter, part 2. And since this one, Vada is basically meant to establish the truth of a proposition, right? Establishing the truth of a proposition. So that is why it is one of the main parts of this system of logic. Of course, the logic itself, which is called Tarka, is the seventh member that we have seen earlier. So, uh, for Tarka, you can check whenever you search for any books on logic. You can also search for Tarka Shastra. Tarka Shastram is another name for Nyaya Shastra. So Tark Shastra is also used in many places for Nyaya Shastra. A lot of people are into studying Nyaya. They can find online books related to this in the form of Tark Shastra. Basically, Tarka is the art of logic or the art of debate. So in this way, we are moving on to the 42nd sutra in serial, but the first of the second part of the first chapter. So I'll just share that onto the screen. Just we'll have a look at it. So what does this say? So this is the first sutra, Nyaya Sutras of the, you can say the second chapter or the first book 1, chapter 2, part 1, chapter 2. So here we are discussing the art of discussion, Vada. So what does it say? Pramana, Tarka, Sadhan, Upalambha, Siddhanta, Aviruddha, Panch Avyava, Upapannaha, Paksha Pratipaksha, Parigraho, Vada. Here the words are joined together. I have separated them for you. If you've got the text, you can read there. Those who are on Clubhouse, they can look up the text for the Nyaya Sutras, available many places online. So if we have this first sutra, there it's saying Praman Tarka Sadhan Upalambha Siddhant Aviruddh Panch Avyav Upapanna Paksha Pratipaksha Parigraho Vada. So basically we are trying to find out what is the system of discussion, Vada. So how do we establish the truth of a proposition? Something that has been said, something that has been put up for debate, we have to establish. Right? So we have to always remember Vada is a civil form of discussion where no quarrel is taking place, no underhand means are being employed. Simple discussion based on a few set parameters. Simple discussion based upon a few set parameters. These parameters are enumerated. They are given very very clearly. यहाँ इसमें पहले सूत्र में बड़े अच्छे से clearly इसको बताया गया. It has been clearly told that this is the way you have to do a discussion. If you go out of this, then you will be thrown out of the room, right? So what does it say? Praman tark sadhan upalambha. So praman, as means of knowledge, is used for any formation, any discussion to go ahead. You have to have a means of knowledge, praman, right? So we have seen earlier also what the different pramanas are. So the shabd praman, the pratyaksh praman, the anuman praman, and the shabd anuman pratyaksh. What was the fourth one? Who can remember? I am might slipping my mind. Manisha, fourth वाला क्या था? Let's test the kids who remembers. Hanuman Hanuman, no, Hanuman, Upman, comparison, Upman, right? So, out of these four pramanas, we are using this to establish the truth of. So, anything you have to find out, you have to maybe directly observe it, pratyaksh praman. Maybe you have to take the word of someone else who have seen it, that is Shabda praman. Maybe you have to make a guess or an estimation based on a reliable earlier experience, that is Anuman Praman, and then Upman. You have to do a comparison, a comparative analysis between two things, right? So Praman has to be there for any discussion to proceed. Then Tarka, you have to have a logical system of debate, a system of logic by which you proceed in this debate, right? The system of logic has to be accepted by all. There are certain rules of logic which we are slowly going to enumerate over the rest of the text also, because there are a lot of things that you say are that you must do in a debate, and there are other things that you can't do are what we enumerate as logical fallacies. So that is the major part of this text, the logical fallacies, the fallacies that we have to look into before we can establish the truth of an opposition. Because you should be very careful, because if anyone is saying something, you should be able to point out which fallacy. I'll come to them when we reach there, but just like just to give a short example, quick example, Twitter is, a lot of people are on Twitter. It's a very toxic place, though I feel, but still, a lot of debates go on. So in all those debates, you find someone is putting up a proposition and another one is refuting it. Most of the times, the person who is refuting it, he has some error. He's doing some error, and by which you can catch that this person is not saying the correct thing. And if you can tell him that this is your logical fallacy, then that person will not be able to counter you further. He will quietly go his own way with his tail between his legs, right? So, like I was just seeing, someone put up a post that the tax, the GST tax, which is a tax used in India, earlier its name was different. It was VAT. So there are two different names for the similar kind of tax. So he was saying that earlier the tax on food was 20%, and now it is 5%. So he used the word GST. So the person who countered him, he said, "What are you saying? The GST is now only the tax is GST. Earlier the tax was not GST. So what kind of fallacy is committing? He's committing a hetuabhas. We'll look today. So I'm leaving the suspense open for you. We'll come to that. So what is basically the fallacy? You can, even without knowing the name of the fallacy, you can guess that he is making a wrong assumption about even if the name of the tax was different, it still means that earlier there was a higher tax and now there is a lower tax. So that means that is beneficial for the citizens in general, right? It is beneficial for them. So that was the point of the person who made the original comment. But the ones refuting him, they will go to all kinds of trickery, to fool. So in this way, this discussion goes on. These techniques are very handy when you do any analysis on any discussion like on Twitter or Facebook or any platform where discussion is going on. So we'll come back to the sutra. So we have praman, tarka, sadhan. They are the means, they are the sadhan, they are the techniques or tools that we employ to prove any proposition. Praman and tarka. And another thing is upalamba. We have to do negation also. So if you are doing any debate, what will a debate be without any negation? You have to prove the other person also wrong. No? Someone has to have a contrary opinion to you, right? So this is this is a very simple knowledge. So in this, that knowledge will be there, and we'll look at the opposite person's view also in the rest of the sutra when we go ahead. So praman, tarka, sadhan, upalamba. This praman and tarka are used means of knowledge and logic are used to prove a proposition or even to disprove the wrong position. And what must be the characteristic? Another characteristic, siddhanta aviruddha. So we have established some rules, some siddhanta. This is the way we will proceed in a debate. There will be no use of wrong methods. Uh, uh, there will be no abusing and all that, right? So all these things are established, and so it must be Siddhant Avirudh. Another interpretation of Siddhant Avirudh, it means also that it must not clash with the known tenets, right? So if you are proving something, you know that the boiling point of water is 100 degrees centigrade. So if someone puts up some factor where he's putting another boiling point for water, then he's going Siddhant Viruddha, right? There might be a special condition where that temperature might change. So he will have to explain that. But in a lot of other things, there are more examples you can see where a Siddhanta has been established, a tenet has been established. You can't deny that in proving that. So we'll look up to that in the other fallacies also. So it has to be Siddhanta Aviruddha. Now, any discussion has to follow the logical principles. And then Panch Avyava Upapanna. So it must take into um, analysis the five members. What are the five members? When we are doing a Anuman Pramana. Anuman Praman, then we saw that there were we were looking at the five ways in which you can do an Anuman Praman. So you have to give a first you have to give the proposition, then you have to give a cause for that, then you have to give an example for that, then you have to establish a correlation between the example and the thing to be proved, and then finally the final statement of proof, hence proved. So that is Panch Avya. We looked at that in the Anuman Praman, right? So that process has to be followed when we are doing an Anumanam. In any kind of proof, we have to do those Panch Avya process, that five membered process, right? So that we'll have to follow. Then Paksha Pratipaksha Parigraha. So you have to also remember that in a debate there are two sides. So in a discussion there will be two people, right? So Paksha and Pratipaksha. So the Paksha is someone who is for the motion, someone who's arguing the thing to be proved, right? But there is someone who's arguing the opposite side also, Pratipaksha. So that Pratipaksha also will have to follow the same rules. He will also have to use Praman, Tarka, Sadhan, Upalam, Siddhant, Avirudh, Pancha, Upanna, right? The whole of the first sentence. George, you are asking something? You were cutting out. Oh, must be some sound problem. Am I okay now? Am I audible right now?
Yeah, you will find now, but before that, at least for me, you said especially now, so at times, your screen was on.
Okay, okay. Sorry, maybe something to do with the connection. I hope it's fine right now. Okay, nice.
Yeah,
Okay,
now it's fine.
nice one. Okay, then we'll continue. So, someone we saw praksha, pratipaksha, aparigraha, parigraha, vadaha. So, parigraha is the summation, the total. These are the total things that have to be taken into consideration if you have to do a discussion. Parigraha. So, basically, what is the sentence saying? Vadaha, a discussion is that which is followed with the rules of logic. It has to take a source of method of knowledge or praman into its reasoning, and then again it also has to go into a negation of the opposite proposition, and it should follow the rules of logic, Siddhanta Viruddha, and Panch Avyava Upanna. It should follow the five logical steps which we use in doing any Anuman Pramana, and Paksha Pratipaksha Parigraha. So, the one for the motion and the one against the motion both should follow the same rules, and that is called a vada, that is called a discussion. So this discussion will help us establish the truth of any proposition, right? So like in basically you see this vadaha is done in place where people of like minds are staying together and they are discussing something in a civil manner. So basically in a class where a teacher is teaching students, so teacher will teach the students certain things. He will give like if there is a class on adhyatma, so he will be teaching about atma. So when he's teaching about atma, he will say yes, atma is nitya. So the student might ask an opposite question, why do you think it's nitya? He will say because it does not change. And so in so on and so manner, like we have seen in Atmabodh classes also, any other thing, you can use it to prove any other kind of proposition. So if someone is saying H2O, what is H2O? Is it a solid, liquid, or gas? Right. So there you have to specify the conditions that a certain temperature and pressure, it is water and it is liquid. But at another different temperature, it will become a gas. And at another lower pressure and temperature, it will become ice, right? So in this way, you have to supply and provide all the conditions for an argument and specify, then only your argument is proved. So this argument, when you prove to someone, you can do it in this way, that you have to follow the different rules of logic, the different rules of a discussion, right? So a student, sometimes this same procedure is followed when two students or a group of students are asked to discuss. So when they are discussing among themselves, they will discuss the topic and they will try to prove the thing that is. So basically our discussion is only aimed at getting to the truth. It's not about winning or losing, right? It's never about who will win this thing, win the questioning, who will only, you have to establish the correct principle, and for that all the rules have to be understood. So when these rules are followed, we can slowly reach to the conclusion that we are looking for. And now let us go into the naughtier ones, the ones where some kind of trickery is used. So we go into the next kind. So we have covered out of the 16 categories, we have done 9. So next we have Jalpa, the 10th category. So what does the sutra say? The second sutra of this second part of the first chapter. Yathokta upapanna chala jati nigraha sthana upalambha jalpaha. So jalpaha basically is what you call wrangling or disputing or argument, right? In that, what some one party is doing is, one party is trying to prove something, the other party is trying to prove him wrong by whatever means, right? So if you look at the words yathokta upapanna, yathokta upapanna, what was said earlier, yatha uktaha, yatha uktaha, what was said earlier, what was said earlier in the previous sutra. All the rules that have to be applied for the Vadaha, they will also apply to Jalpaha. So, Praman Tarka Sadhana Upalambha, Siddhant Aviruddha, Panch Avyava Uppanna, Paksha Pratipaksha. So, all these rules that in Jalpa also, you will have to use a means of knowledge, Praman. You will have to use logic, rules of logic, Tarka. You will also have to use Sadhan. You have to use upalamba, you have to use negation, your system should be siddhanta virudh, and so on. So all these are also part of uh, Jalpaha. But what is special? What is special in Jalpaha? You are allowed some naughty tricks, some tricks. So what are those tricks? Chala, Jati, Nigraha, Sthana. These are the next three categories also. Out of the 16 categories, this is the 10th, Jalpaha. So next three are also Chala, Jati, and Nigraha, Sthana. So these are basically what you can say are the logical fallacies. The logical fallacies that people use to win an argument, right? So let me clarify here that a lot of other darshan shastras or other texts, so they criticize this. So why should these be discussed in a discussion? So discussion should be civil, discussion should not go outside the rule, this chala jati, and not to be used, not to be employed. But uh, these things, they serve two very important points, right? You might be honest, but your opponent might not be. So you have to catch him out. You have to be able to tell him that this is your proposition, this is the error. This is the logical fallacy you are committing while trying to prove your point. So this is a very simple one. Another one which we will look up when we go into the fourth chapter also. When we reach there, we can check it out. So in the fourth chapter, what is said is these Chhala Jati and Nigristan, they are used to protect, like a fence or a fence of thorns is built around something that is very delicate or vulnerable to protect that. So Chhala Jati Nigristan are also used to protect Tattva Gyan. Tattva Gyan is the highest knowledge. It is available after a lot of meditation, lot of introspection, lot of thinking, and finally to establish the conviction that I am Atma. When that establishment of that conviction happens, then what happens is I slowly reach towards that point where I practice that knowledge, where I practice. If it should not be something that I've read in a book, otherwise it is useless. If you know how to cook a pizza, that does not mean you'll be eating pizza in the evening. You have to make the effort, right? You have to bring home the ingredients. You have to cook them in the proper manner. You have to get the sauces. You have to get all the veggies and everything. You have to really work. You know, without work, so it might be just physical work or it might be mental. But whatever be the case, with Tattva Jnanam, what happens is your mind is prepared to take on the world. There will be a lot of challenges when you face the world, and with Tattva Jnanam, you are able to face. So this Tattva Jnanam, the real truth, has to be protected by these, because otherwise, lot of unworthy people will go towards it. And then what will they do? They will try to dispute it in a manner that is unsuitable, and they will also try to disrupt that knowledge. So that we will discuss more in the fourth chapter. But I'm giving you this for just because a lot of other, Vedanta and other, even other opposing philosophies, they try to counter these things. So we have to learn all our Darshan Shastras, as I keep repeating again and again, they are presenting different sides of the same reality, different sides of the same reality. That same reality, when it is in the unmanifest form, that is the subject of Vedanta. That same reality, when it is in the subject of the manifest world, the things we see around us, the people we see around us, the objects of our experience, the utilization of those things. So when that comes into play, what is the size of those objects? What is the shape? How do they interact with each other? That is the topic of logic. Now, that is also the topic of Vaisheshik, Nyaya, Vaisheshik. Two Shastras deal with the elements of the world at the micro level, the elements of the manifest world. So that does not mean that manifest world is not worth examining. No. So if Vedanta says that this world is mithya, this is temporary, this will disappear on knowledge. So physically it will never disappear. So to understand the nature while we are trapped into in this world, due to our ignorance, due to our ajnanam, we have to learn to behave in this world. Otherwise, we will be a mess. So Nyaya, Vaisheshik, they teach us those things. How to uh, examine all the 16 categories, examine all the objects of the world, learn of their true nature, and learn only to use them as instruments that the Lord has given us. Learn to use them as things that are temporary but are meant for us to enjoy, to make our journey in this life beautiful, wonderful, right? So this Jalpahar basically is trying to confuse the opponent. Huh? So Yathok Upapana Chala. Chala is trickery. Huh? You use some kind of tricks by which you can fool the opponent and you can make them uh, something that has been said. Chal is basically what? You are putting words into another person's mouth. He has not said those things. He has not said those things. Yet, because you want to prove him wrong, you will add some things that he has said to some things he has not said, and then focus on the things he has not said. So that is basically chal. Chal is trying to fool someone. Then jati. Jati is another kind of logical fallacy where you establish the nature of an object, and then you the jati of an object, a cow. You know what the color of a cow is. Then you establish another element, another name, Nil Guy. So you say, what is the Nil Guy? Is it a blue cow? No, the Nil Guy looks like a deer actually. So it's totally different. So using words, you can confuse someone with their argument. So there are a lot of applications to these. We'll keep looking on, because jati itself has 24 subdivisions, right? So we'll look into that. And then nigrah sthananam is, it is the conclusion of an argument. So any conclusion of an argument, there can be many ways you can you know you can alter the conclusion by using tricks. So this one again also has another 22 variations. There are nigrasthana is another kind of logical fallacy which has 22 parts. So yathokt upapannah chal jati nigrah sthana sadhan upalambha jalpah. So this by negation of the opposite view and by proving of your own view, you can do jalpa. So in jalpa basically you are trying to go into a debate with a person. The person has a certain point of view, so he will present that point of view. You have a point of view that is opposite to that. Both will give arguments and both will try to prove. It is also possible in jalpaha where one person is giving the using the right methods. He is using what we say vadaha, and the second person is doing jalpa. But in sometimes both also happen, right? So in a lot of earlier debates in the different philosophical systems, both kinds of things were used, because if you have to defeat an opponent, sometimes the wrong ends also are justified, because you have the truth on your side, right? So because to prove the atma, the truth, is not a matter of words, right? So for those who depend on words for that proof, you have to use some kind of tricks. So these are used in this manner, right? And then we look into the next one. I'll just I'll share the next sutra onto the screen. This is the third kind of discussion, vitandaha. So what is vitandaha? Vitanda is basically quarreling. Kevil is the word they use here. Swa pratipaksha sthapana hino vitanda. What is vitanda? Basically, swa pratipaksha. That person, he does not have a position. He does not have an opposite opinion. Only thing is he has to prove the opposite person wrong. So Kevil is basically kind of wrangling, which consists in mere attacks on the opposite side. That is what it says here. So if you can understand clearly from here also, that in Vitanda is basically when you are trying to prove someone wrong in whatever matter possible, you do not have another contrary or different opinion. Only thing is you want to prove that other one wrong, right? So this is basically between people who are enemies or people who are jealous of each other, so they will resort to vitanda. A lot of a lot of things happen in these. If you can see those online debates, some people are, say someone is talking about protecting Hinduism, someone is protecting Islam, someone is protecting uh, Buddhism. So they are all giving their arguments, but the ones who want to prove them wrong, they will give any kind of argument. They will try to point to the flaws in their argument. They will not they will not present a contrary or something, you can say a correct opinion that needs to be established. So swa pratipaksha stapna in a vitanda, right? So Zoom meeting, this one we have for 10 minutes more. We can continue after that. So you can please join after that. I'll let you know when we are about to end this. Another 10 minutes we have. Okay. So Vitanda is one where we can go for that kind of proof. So next one we have the Hetvabhas. So from here we start into the topic of the logical fallacies. So this is the first kind of logical fallacy, Hetvabhasa. So what does it say? This is the fourth sutra of this second part of the first chapter. So sa व्यभिचार विरुद्ध प्रकरणम साध्य समातीत काला हेत्वाभास. So what is basically hetvabhas? If we can just understand, hetvabhas is hetu abhasah. So hetu is a cause or a reasoning or something you use to establish an argument, right? So in an argument, we saw the panch avyava, the five parts. In the five parts, what is the first one? Is the pratigya. Pratigya, you propose something. Second is one is the hetu. You give some cause. Why? So Parvat Vanniman. there is fire on the uh, hill. So what is the hetu you give? What is the cause you give? Yatha dhumvat. Because there is dhumah, there is smoke there. So because there is smoke there, there must be fire. So that hetu is smoke. Right. So more, this is a very common example we use, right? But if you look into the Hetvabhas, we will find it will come under Hetvabhas also. There is a small logical fallacy even in this example. A lot of you might have noticed it earlier also when we were giving the example that because you can mostly in 99% cases infer that smoke is there on the mountain with from fire. You can infer fire from the smoke, but in some cases smoke is not there. A lot of times if a very hot coal is burning, there will be only the glow of the coal, or if an iron ball is being glowing with heat, then there will be only heat there and light there, but there will not be smoke. So these kind of small points are there when you look at any cause. So you have to understand every reasoning can't be perfect. There might be some simple small flaws. Only thing you have to understand is, can we ignore that flaw? Can we ignore that flaw? So in the case of the smoke and fire, mostly we can ignore that flaw. Mostly we can ignore, because when we seeing the smoke, that is the main thing. When we are seeing the smoke, we are inferring fire. So obviously, smoke being more pervasive, you can easily spot smoke from a long distance. So from that smoke, you can usually infer that there is a fire. So Hetvabhas is basically a, a Hetu ka abhas. It is a cause that appearing as a cause. It is not actually the cause. It is not the correct cause. It is an abhas. It is an appearance. It is a pretension. ये लग रहा है कि मुझे हेतु है. I think that it is a cause, but it actually there is some kind of small flaw there. So out of this abhas, hetva abhas, there are five kinds. There are basically five kinds of hetva abhas. What are these 5 points? Savyabhichar. Savyabhichar, we'll look into this later because this is given in the next uh, sutras. So Savyabhichar, Viruddha, Prakaranasam, Sadhyasam, and Atit Kala. So Kalatit. You can reverse this. It is saying here Atit Kalaha. So actually Kalatit. Something that happens in a different time. Right? So we'll look into these. So when we are examining any proposition, we have to be very carefully trying to understand that there might be we are proving something, but there might be some flaw there that we have to spot, and we have to be careful to eliminate that flaw, or to somehow prove that even with this flaw, this argument is correct. So we'll look into the first hetu abhas. So that is in the next sutra. Anaikantikah savyabhichar. Anaikantika. So if you are looking at savyabhichar hetvabhas, that is being talked about here. So out of the five categories of hetvabhas, you have the first one is anek antika. Anek antika. What is anek antika? Basically, when you are talking about a siddhanta, it has one end. Siddhanta. It has one proved definite end. Siddhanta. Right? So in a Siddhanta, there are no different endings or no different conclusions that can be reached. But in a Hetvabhas, it can be anekantika. It can have anek antaha. So if you are giving an argument, in that argument, there might have a different, there might be more than one conclusion. Right? So one of the more common examples that is given in the Shastras is, first one, they say that in this anekantik survey vichar, the first one is given is that sound is eternal or not. You have to prove. So you are taking the proposition sound is eternal, right? So for that, some people will give the argument that sound is because it is intangible. What does intangible mean? It is not available for touch. Asparshavat. Asparshavat is the technical word used there. So sound cannot be touched, right? So uh, then they give the reasoning. They conclude with the reasoning. Whatever is intangible is as eternal, just as atoms. All the parmanus, you can't see the parmanus. You can't touch the parmanus. You can't feel the Parmanus. They are so subtle. Hmm. So those atoms that you cannot touch and feel. Uh, uh, but actually, one. So they are whatever is intangible is eternal. Those atoms we say are eternal. Huh? So by the law of conservation of mass, as we say, the number of atoms will always remain constant. They do not destroy. In any construction, the atoms come together, and in any destruction, atoms get ripped apart. But the total number of atoms remains the same. So they say that, hence prove that sound is eternal, right? So, but there is a flaw here. What is the flaw here? So someone says, some opponent comes and he tries to prove that this is not right. He says that what you're saying is not a definite proof. Why? He said, no, yeah, no, not that. So we are coming to that. So when we are talking about sound, right? So he's using the argument of asparshavat. He's using the sound cannot be touched. So he says, then that means that if sound it cannot be detected, oh, because it cannot be touched, it does not have the property of touch. Then that means that sound is, that means you are saying it is eternal. Then he can say, the what about buddhi? Buddhi also comes and goes. So that means your buddhi is not there. You don't have a brain, right? So in this way, he says buddhi is also asparshavan. So if buddhi is asparshavan, buddhi is anityam, then how can sound be anityam? Similar thing, you can use other things also. What are other things? If you notice from Tattva Bodh the order of subtlety, what is subtle and gross. So of those five elements, which is the most gross, earth, Prithvi Tattva. Then you move on to Jal, then you move on to Agni, then you move on to Vayu. So Vayu has sparsha, right? So anything that is more subtle than Vayu, it will not have sparsha. You cannot touch anything. So what is more subtle than Vayu? Manisha, George,
Akash.
Akash, right? Right? So Akash we can't touch also, no? You can't touch the sky. Right? So in this way, Akash also is asparshavan. So this argument does not hold water. It is an example of an anaikantik vyabhichara, right? So in fact, you can use this to prove the opposite thing also, the same logic. So it is what we call an heretic logic, or an heretic logic, because you can say the opposite also. You can say sound is non-eternal. You can say sound is non-eternal. Why? Because it is intangible. What is not? What is intangible? You can say uh, uh, akasha, you can say buddhi, you can say mahat, you can say prakriti, everything, all the elements that go above that, below the atma, all of them are asparshavan. So you can say they are, that way sound is also uh, non-eternal. That is why proving of sound is one of the most trickiest questions. We have Spotavada, a huge text, huge, massive text about trying to prove the eternality of sound. Lots of logic debates. Uh, So we wound up the Zoom. So we are restarting. So those on Clubhouse, please sorry for the delay. We'll be restarting in a minute or so. Okay, I was just looking up at the chat. Rahul has put in Anuplabdhi as a pramanam. That is also there, but not used in Nyaya, of course, but still it is there. Thank you. Okay, so now welcome back. Manisha. Okay, so our Zoom people have joined, so I think we can now start. So basically, what we are looking at so far is that we are looking at an argument that is faulty, that is the savyavichar anekantik hetwabhas. Huh? So that cause, that hetwabhas, that cause which is faulty in the nature of being anekantik. Anekantik, it has many conclusions. It does not have one single proper conclusion. So that is the anekantik savyavichar, right? So this is one that is used here. So if I can give you an example, I was talking about the Twitter debate also. So there also this person was arguing about tax. And what happened is in that Anekantik Savya Vichar, what the person, one person said there is a tax on food. Earlier that was 20%. Now it is 5%. So the person arguing against him, he pointed out a grammatical error in his statement. So he is trying to confuse the other person. Instead of addressing the correct proposition, he is addressing a different proposition. So he is giving an anekantik vyavichar. He's giving something that is not needed actually, right? So here also in anekantik we are giving a hetu or a cause that is actually not needed. So next we move on to the next one. Repeating next one. Next. So anekantik sa vyavichar. Then the next is the viruddha hetvabhas. Viruddha hetvabhas. The opposite thing. So siddhantam abhyupetah tad virodhi viruddha. So what is a viruddha hetvabhas? Basically, it is trying to prove something that is opposite actually to what you are trying to prove. It is in the end, it ends up in going into the opponent side only. So a lot of times it happens that we use some kind of logic and then we find, oh, what did I do? I proved myself wrong. So a lot of time it happens, you know. Someone will say, yes, I went to the kitchen and then someone, his mother was saying to the kid, you drank the milk in the kitchen. So he said, first he's saying, no, 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 I didn't drink the milk in the kitchen. I didn't even go there. Then she said, uh, yeah, yeah, but I brought some fresh bananas also. So, did you see them? Then he said, yes, yes, yes. I saw the fresh bananas. They were lying in this at a distance from the milk. So he said, then if you know the bananas are there, then he went there. So she catches him in the lie. So in this way, you are giving a viruddha hetava. So here, if you look, someone is saying you are trying to prove a pot or something, any object is eternal. So someone says a pot is produced. Hmm. So a pot is produced, something has come into existence. That means it is there, so it is eternal. But what is a pot actually? If you examine the pot, we saw in Vedanta also, we saw in Atma Bodh also. A pot is basically a collection of different atoms that build the pot, different tattvas, huh? Mainly constituted of Prithvi tattva. So when that pot is destroyed, the tattvas go back into their own original nature. So the pot cannot be eternal. But the person is saying pot is produced because it is eternal. So that kind of logic is something that is proving the opposite of what it was meant to prove, right? So in this way we go into the viruddha hetwabhas. And then we looking into the third one. So we'll just read that. प्रकरणसम. So yasmat prakaran chinta sa nirnayartham apadishtah prakaran samha. So prakaran sam is something, the prakaran, the argument that we are doing, the topic that we are discussing. So but prakaran sam, it is similar, उसी के जैसा ही है. So if we are trying to prove something that is there in an argument and we are giving the same argument uh, that is we are trying to prove. So yasmat prakaran chinta, whatever we are trying to discuss, Yasmat Prakaranam Chinta, whatever Prakaranam or whatever topic we are discussing, Sa Nirnayartham Apadishta. From there, we take the conclusion only that is given in that argument. So, if someone is saying here, the example is given, you can read here also the proposition that sound is non-eternal. There are many other, we can come to that also. So, proposition sound is non-eternal. So, what is this reason given? The reason given by that person? Reason because it is possessed of the attribute of eternality. So because I know it is eternal, so it is eternal. So that is not an argument, right? So you're just restating the proposition only. So in this way, that is prakaran samaha. You're just repeating the proposition itself. So like someone says, uh, mercury is not a metal. So now what he's doing is mercury is not a metal. So he's say why because it is a liquid. So who told you that a liquid cannot be metal? You have to get the exact definition, right? What is a metal? So in this way, you will end up disproving yourself only. He's using his own logic. He's not using the correct logic. So in this way, we get into the different kinds of logics where prakaransam we are stating whatever is being proved only. So that is prakaransam. There is a very subtle, small difference between these five hetvavas. So you can club them together also, no worries. It's not necessary. If you can spot a hetvavas, you can simply mention. You don't have to say that this is that. Even in these hetvavas, there are further subdivisions. There are other texts where they are divided more and more by order of subtlety of these different hetvavas also. So some hetvavas will have another 3, 4 subdivisions, right? So then we look into the next one. We'll do this one only because I think time is up. So we look at the next hetu abhasa, the next kind of logical fallacy. So sadhya vishishta sadhyatvat sadhyasam. So sadhyasam is something that we are trying to prove, sadhya, and then sadhya vishishta sadhyatvat. So that something that is unproved is given as a reason for a proof. So we haven't proved something, but we are still using it as an argument to prove the proposition, right? So in this very common example is given, you will understand from the example. You are trying to prove something with the logic that logic itself has not been proved. So for this, a very common example that is used in our texts is given is, we can use other examples. I'll come to that also. So that sadhya someone says shadow is the substance. छाया जो है एक द्रव्य है. Shadow is a substance. What is the logic given for that? He says because it moves. Now, because it moves, something is moving, you will think, oh, yes, if something is moving, then it must be a substance. But actually, what happens? The logic is wrong. The logic is wrong. It is not necessary that something is moving, that means it is an object, it is a dravyam, it is a substance. Because the movement does not belong to the chaya. The movement belongs to the object, or it also belongs to the light source. With the movement of the light source, the shadow can move, right? So the logic given there is because it moves is wrong. So logic has a defect. So in this way, you get this sadhyasam hetu abhas. You are giving whatever is being proved, you are using that argument, you are giving an argument itself, uh, that itself is not proved. The argument itself is not correct. The argument is not a proved argument. It is an unproved argument. Right? So in this way, so a lot of ways you can go for this also in other debates also. Like if someone is trying to say that the distance from the earth to the sun is so many miles. Yeah. And then he says, how can you say that? Then he'll say, because I measured it yesterday. I went up to the sun and I checked it myself. So he cannot give the proof for that. This is something someone would not have done. So obviously he's saying something that is wrong. So in this way, this is a very simple or silly kind of example, but there are so many other you can conjure themselves up yourself. So in this way, we have this another kind of Hetvabhas. So we are left with the fifth one only. So I think that we'll cover in the next one, the Kalatit Hetvabhas. I think we'll wind up for today and we'll continue in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Hari Om. So, thank you everyone. Thank you for coming. We hope to see you in the next class. I hope you understood. I was clear. I hope it was not too confusing. So, so we're ending the class.